Welcome to another episode of Fresh Off the Set. I'm Kari Hawker-Diaz.
And I'm David Osmond. Thank you so much for joining us today. Conversation we're going to have today about your gut health. This is something that we all experience because we all have to eat to live. And so we're decoding some of the common digestive symptoms that are out there. And gut health expert, Emilie Davis, sat down with you, Kari, to talk about those common myths, debunking some of those things. This is something that I'm interested in checking out as well, because I learned, even living with multiple sclerosis like myself, garbage in, garbage out. Mm-hmm. You can actually change a lot of your circumstances just by the foods you eat and how you eat.
Yeah, it's so true. She's been on our show multiple times, and she really is an expert on this. So we talk about how common is it? You know, is it common just to go out and have a meal and feel bloated, and is that normal? Which apparently she says is not normal. You shouldn't be really bloating at all. Digestive issues are incredibly common in the U.S. They affect an estimated 60 to 70 million Americans annually. So national surveys reveal that 40 to 50% of the population were either living with a diagnosed GI condition or maybe think that we have one. So she talks about like what to look for, what is normal, what isn't, and kind of how to resolve these issues.
Definition of insanity is doing the same thing and expecting a different result. And we probably just continue on our eating habits and not thinking a lot about the finer details. So this is a good conversation. Anxious to dive into this. Thank you for listening. I'll be listening on this one and paying close attention because it does affect our overall well-being.
Yep, so true. All right, should we just give it a listen?
Let's do it.
Emilie, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
You've been on the show multiple times. I'm so excited to sit down with you and be able to spend a little more time talking about this. So let's dive right in. What are some common gut symptoms that people are ignoring or maybe just normalizing? What should we be looking for? What are we feeling?
You mentioned some of them already, some of the big ones. Bloating, it's such a common symptom, and it can, the reason why behind it can be vast and varied. So that one's a little bit of a tricky one, but it's so common. Bloating, constipation. The other side of that would be loose stools, acid reflux, heartburn, and all of those kinds of things are signals. Something's wrong.
How are these signals or feedback from the body?
What's supposed to happen?
Good to know.
Yeah, when people tell me, that's kind of their, I'm using air quotes, they're normal. It's not normal. It really is not normal for people to even bloat like after a meal. And so if they are, and if that's, you use the word earlier, like chronic or constant, like, right? If that's a daily thing, if that's a 2 or 3 times a week thing, even that's your body telling you something's not quite right.
That we need to decode. Okay. Yeah. How can we decode those signals that our body is obviously trying to tell us?
Well, people love to DIY. Maybe it helps resolve their symptoms, right? Whether it's, for example, taking a probiotic or a digestive enzyme or something. Those are all great tools, and they can be getting at the reason why, the root cause. But I tend to meet people in I've tried everything kind of story. It has been years, even decades.
Wow.
And so we need better information. And so that's where the functional stool test I use comes in.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Emilie, what if we've been dealing with gut issues for years and we go to the doctor and we're diagnosed with IBS? You hear that a lot, right? Mm-hmm. Why is that just not the full story?
People may or may not know the label IBS or irritable bowel syndrome. It really just is a label. It means we tested for these other things and it wasn't these other things, and we don't really know why you're experiencing that chronic bloating or loose stools or whatever, and so we're going to call it IBS.
In my mind, I'm like, okay, constant, even if you're not eating, like constant feeling bloated or having constipation, yeah, maybe that would throw you off. But I think sometimes when you eat a meal and you have that like bloated feel, so you're saying not even, that really shouldn't even actually happen.
No.
Interesting. Okay, that's a sign. So even if you
It
eat a big meal
is.
out and you're feeling bloated, that's supposed to happen.
Yeah. And so it can be, this is where like the nutrition and the gut health come together for me. It can absolutely be the food that you're eating. That can be part of the reason why. And maybe you're not digesting as well as you need to be. Maybe there's all sorts of things, overgrowth of bacteria, et cetera, right? I mean, it can be both, but no, you shouldn't be bloated after a meal.
Okay. Good to know. That is check off the list. Good to know. Okay, what are you seeing, Emily, in clients who were diagnosed with IBS? How are they feeling? What are you seeing with them? What are they saying?
It's a good question. And I mean, it's good that we bring up IBS because I do feel like that's such a common thing that people, maybe if they've gone to the doctor, maybe even a GI, had some of those tests done and right, some of the other checks or boxes have been checked and tests have been done. And like I say, it's usually doctors saying like, I don't know. Right.
Yeah.
And so the IBS story is really just like people believing at some point, this is just how I am. And I've heard from some of my clients that like, that is what doctors tell them. Well, that's just, you're just bloated. You're just constipated.
Yeah, that's just going to be who you are.
That's just who you are. And frankly, that's not good enough for me. And it's usually not the story. So if someone's coming to me and we do the testing and we're getting information that conventional doctors don't know, don't use. And so that's where I think a lot of times I am able to get results for people because I have different information.
Do you have a story of a client that you had who was told that they had IBS?
Many.
Is that mostly what you hear from people? It's like they've been diagnosed with IBS and they just don't know where to go.
That's a good question. It's a combination, I would say, of IBS, and I'm going to throw around some acronyms and words that like if you know, and if you don't know, you don't know. And right, like it's good you don't know.
Yes.
But so whether it's IBS or SIBO or IBD is the autoimmune kind of version of IBS, or this just kind of like we don't know. And so patients are, going to various doctors and trying to find answers. That really, I would say, is probably the common story.
The common story.
Mm-hmm.
Do you hear a lot of people with constipation? And
Yes.
Is that normal to like maybe go through a phase of constipation and then kind of get regular again and kind of go back and forth? Or should we not be experiencing that really at all?
That's a good question. Potentially it's, maybe quote unquote normal to have some variance. We can probably all think through, for example, when we travel.
Yes.
And it's pretty common.
It's the worst.
Yes. Right. So like anyone who's traveled, which I think is almost everyone, like you can think to being irregular and or not having a bowel movement, depending on what that day or days look like when you're traveling. That's kind of normal.
Why does that happen?
Combination of stress and your routine is off, and part of your routine being off is like you're not maybe drinking, as much water, and you're not moving, and you're not having your meals at the same time, right? All of that matters.
Okay. Does it have to do with like maybe you're eating out more and
That
not like
too.
Cooking at home?
That too could be.
So big combination.
Yeah, combination of factors, but like that is an example of when I would say like, yeah, that's pretty normal. That a lot of people might miss a day.
Sure.
Right. But beyond that, not normal.
Not normal. Okay.
Mhm.
What about diarrhea or the urgency? Like you just have to get to the bathroom. Should we be experiencing that ever?
No.
Okay.
Not unless you have some kind of maybe viral or bacterial infection. I mean, that's going to happen, but that should be kind of your window for that is like 24 to 48 hours.
Okay. And other than that, no.
And then it should resolve. But yeah, if someone is experiencing loose bowel movements, diarrhea, they're different. We can be specific. We can talk about it if you
No, let's get
want.
real. This is like, we've heard these. Let's just get to it, right?
Do you know, when I use the word constipation with people, and
They're like, whoa.
well, and people are often kind of defensive and they think like, oh, that's not me. And then if I probe a little and I say, well, okay, let's actually define constipation. Oftentimes people realize that that's them.
Yeah. Can we define it here? Can we say
yeah.
what? Yeah. Cause I think we just
Please.
think, oh, I haven't gone to the bathroom in like a few days, but like how often should we be going?
Great question. Once a day, 1 to 3 times a day.
1 to 3 times a day.
1 to 3 times a day.
Okay.
If someone is going 2 to 3 times a day, and these are healthy bowel movements, so let's define that too.
Sure.
Meaning that, so like a healthy bowel movement, it's at least once a day, it's firm, intact. But when constipation, even if someone is like deer pellets, that's starting to like
that means
look
dry.
at that.
You're dry.
Yeah, you're dry. Exactly.
Okay.
So deer pellets is also kind of constipation. So they're really it's called the Bristol stool chart, and look it up. Bristol stool chart. There is a ideal healthy bowel movement of what it should look like. So constipation, yeah, if your daily is like deer pellets, that's constipation.
Okay, so there's different levels of it. Not only you're not going, but it's looking different. Okay, what about like food sensitivities? Is that a real thing that we can be sensitive to certain food groups or food just
Absolutely.
period, food
Yeah,
period?
absolutely. Yeah, so when we were talking about bloating after a meal, certainly, right? There are foods that typically processed foods, but people can have sensitivities or allergies and tolerances. They're all different, by the way, different reactions to food, though, that can be the reason that someone's bloating. Other things too. And I have a good example of a couple of different clients that we had done some really good gut work, gut healing. They had done the stool test. It had been about 6 months. We did a follow-up, had pretty much resolved all the things that were in that first test, but they still were very bloated. And so this particular client, this is a good example of when I would recommend food sensitivity testing. I get this question often because a lot of people will start there with the food sensitivity or an allergy test, and you're going to an allergist, immunologist, different doctors can do these testing. It's fine, but there's such a bigger connection to how you're reacting and responding to food that's tied to the gut. And so I start there. And I resolve, I would say, like 95% of these things just by using the information in the stool test versus starting with the food sensitivity test.
So those are two different, sure, okay.
Two different things. And so this particular client I'm thinking of, he just was so bloated still all the time. And I remember saying to him in what should have been like our last session together, that's not normal. That was his normal. But I was kind of finally getting this out of him. And so we did food sensitivity testing. And sure enough, 2 food groups were really high. And when we eliminated that, the bloating went away.
Wow.
So yeah, I mean, there really is a connection with food. And that, hopefully I'm explaining this well, there really is such a bigger connection to the gut, which is why I start there. But yeah, I mean, people need to sometimes eliminate certain food groups.
Certain foods, which will be worth it. Okay, so let's get more into testing and how that's changing the game. So there's like the food allergies, and then you have like the stool collection kit, and you have the box here. Tell me why this is so much better and why you like to start there.
This tells me, so there's 4 pages of information. And if someone listening is thinking, well, I've been to my GI, and they do great work, by the way. I wish we were a little bit better integrated is all, right? There's time and a place and good information. But I mentioned this functional stool test gives me different and more information than typically what you're doing with the GI. And that's really the difference. So It's not just looking at, I'm thinking about some of the same things that GI might, which is, have you been exposed to some kind of pathogen, a bacteria,
Ooh,
a
would the stool
virus?
collection kit tell you
It
that?
does.
Oh.
Yep. So we're thinking about the same things. Like a really good sign is someone who has chronic diarrhea. Like, I mean, that's a sign typically that someone's been exposed to some kind of pathogen is the word that we use. And those are things like, to give you an example of like E. coli and norovirus and salmonella. Like those are what we think of as pathogens. And so there's a whole page of that, right? So we're on the same lines as far as like thinking of those things. Parasites too is what this tests for. And then the other stuff that isn't typically thought about or tested in conventional doctors' offices is, well, what about your good bacteria? What do they look like? They do so many things for us in the gut. We have to know what that looks like, in combination with, well, what do some of those, we call them opportunistic bacteria, look like? And then other things like digestive output and inflammation, and leaky gut is a term that a lot of people have heard, and we can test for that. And so it's kind of all of these other things. And when I'm meeting with someone and I'm looking at these results and looking at their story, their health history, right, it typically is this much bigger kind of overview. It's in my experience, it's never really any one thing. Even if someone has SIBO, IBD, which is Crohn's and diverticulitis and things like that, it's never just that.
Yeah.
There's all of these other things that are happening in the gut, and they contribute.
That is so great that test can give you so much information. What are the most common reasons that you're seeing from a lot of your clients that they're having these issues once they take this test? Is it like a parasite or virus? Are you seeing a lot of, or is it kind of a combination of everything and maybe some food they need to switch out, foods they need to cut out of their diet?
Good question. It is definitely a combination of things. Yeah, typically it is a combination of oftentimes too little good bacteria. That in and of itself can be why someone is feeling what they're feeling. And an example of that, I can think of a client who came to me thinking, in his words, he had like diverticulitis. He thought he had something because he'd had this chronic diarrhea for months. Turns out, after 4 rounds of antibiotics, just different surgeries, oral and otherwise, but he'd been on 4 rounds of antibiotics in a year. So we know what an antibiotic does, right? It kills the bacteria, but it doesn't differentiate. So it's killing the quote unquote bad with the good. And when our gut is, down to 0 of the good stuff, that, like I say, in and of itself will create symptoms.
So even just having, like, being on antibiotics, I forget about that can throw off your, do you suggest, okay, so a lot of people, like, probiotics are thrown around a lot. Do you like them? Are they useful? What kind of form should we be taking them, and how often?
Yeah, great question. The short answer is it depends.
Okay.
Because they are great, they are helpful, and there really are many things to consider and think about whether or not, number one, you need one. Number two, are you taking the right one? Number three, things like the dose and or how the powder or the capsule is,
or a drink, if there's
there's
so many variables.
Yep, there's so many different things as far as like making sure that, so a probiotic is live bacteria, making sure that live bacteria actually gets to the place that you need it. All of those things matter. And so again, one of the reasons I love this test is that it tells me, shows me what someone's good bacteria looks like. Example, I sat down with a new client yesterday, and they don't need a probiotic. Not right now. So, right, I can see that, and it allows me, once I have all of that information, to be able to really target what they do need.
Yeah.
instead of guessing. I mean, that's kind of, again, I think where a lot of people come to me after years of DIYing and guessing. I've taken a probiotic and I've taken a digestive enzyme and I've done, cleanses and anyway, right? Just all the things. And if you hear yourself in kind of that description, that's where more information really is helpful.
What else can we do other than, I mean, this test seems genius to me that because you have all the information, you know exactly what's going on. But is there anything else we can do in our daily lives to work on our gut health or maybe like repair it?
Absolutely. Yeah. And again, this is kind of where I think, the nutritionist in me, right, is such a good fit for what I do. Maybe it's kind of a buzzword right now, but I was going to say probably the best advice I can give to someone, not just for gut health, but overall health, is eating more vegetables.
We need more. And in fact, what is the amount we should be eating? Because I always think back to like the pyramid from like childhood, that we see.
It's okay that you can forget it.
Okay. Get rid of that. If you're thinking that too, and you're like me, get it out of your mind.
Get it out of your head.
Here's the truth. Okay. How many servings of, and we're talking fruits or just veggies strictly?
Let's talk both. So fruits and vegetables, truly, this is probably the best thing you can do for your health. More.
Veggies. Okay.
Eat more.
Okay.
So we want about 2 to 3 servings of fruit a day.
2 to 3 servings. And then let's give the people listening the picture in their mind. Like how much is a serving?
So, yeah, I mean, I see you making a fist and that's actually a great way to kind of think about it. So if you think like a small to medium-sized apple or orange, or if we're talking a banana, typically half a banana is better because it is higher in sugar.
That's sugar, right? Okay. So if one serving is about the size of your fist.
Yeah,
okay.
About.
Okay.
Yep. And so you think of like a handful of berries, right? Or like I say, the small to medium apple, something like that.
And 2 to 3 of
fruit. 2 to 3 fruit servings a day, to about 6 to 8 servings of vegetables a day.
6 to 8. Okay, so that means you are adding maybe to breakfast. We typically think breakfast is like sweet stuff,
I know.
But do savory. Get those veggies. Are we talking raw or cooked veggies or either?
Okay. And here's where, what I'm helping clients with as part of my program is a lot of people, if their gut is in a kind of a healing state, shall we say, cooked fruits and veggies do better
if you cook them.
But otherwise, if you you tolerate both are great.
Both are great. What is the worst, maybe one worst thing that we're eating that's harming our gut?
Sugar.
And we're not talking like natural, like in bananas or anything. We're talking
not. Okay. Yeah, we're talking about it in all the other forms of, people have heard the term processed foods. And I'm happy to define that too, because it's like, okay, processed foods, and people will come to me and say, well, I eat really healthy. Well,
what does that mean?
Yeah, what does that mean? Like, I'll be the judge of that. But typically what a lot of people mean, even when they say that, is they're still eating a lot of processed foods.
Yeah.
And you and I might be able to come up with some of those, like, using air quotes again, like healthy convenience foods.
Okay.
Protein bars and protein shakes. And
anything like in a package or like that's going to be processed.
Yeah, you got it. And so sugar is hiding in things like salad dressing and spaghetti sauce and ketchup. And, once someone realizes that and starts looking at labels, it really is pretty eye-opening.
Yeah,
I think.
So sugar. So if we can cut out as much as we can. Any sugar substitutes you suggest? Like I know people use dates or.
Yep, I like dates because they're a whole food. I like honey. I like maple syrup.
Okay,
and those are pretty much the ones I really like.
Switch that out.
Yeah, those 3 actually have nutrients. We get good vitamins and minerals from each of those, fiber even from dates. So all things considered, those are the ones that I like. And, just to maybe explain a little bit, the thing about sugar in all its forms, including artificial. And so artificial is If you're consuming anything on the package that says 0 sugar, no sugar, sugar-free, it's not true.
Okay, good to know.
It means that there's artificial sweetener.
They've just switched it with
They've
something
switched
else.
it.
And
Yep.
would you say artificial sweetener is worse than sugar, or about the same, or bad too?
About the same.
Okay.
Maybe worse.
Okay.
Yeah. And so the thing about overall health, but also specifically gut health, you asked me, is that sugar kills the good bacteria. And I've given you a little bit of a hint of, what some of the things that the good bacteria do, but sugar will kill them.
Okay. Sugar. So get rid of that sugar if we can. That's the one thing. Okay. And if someone's listening thinking, is it possible for me to completely heal my gut, or get it back to maybe how I was feeling before? Like what, and this probably ranges between different clients and different people and different symptoms and cases, but are we, time frame, are we looking at years, or can we maybe just start feeling better in a few months, or what does that look like?
It's a really good question. People start to feel better within the 4 to 8 week.
Oh, that's a lot shorter than I was thinking. Okay.
And then to kind of answer your question though, if someone is coming to me with something pretty serious, and or that story of you've been dealing with this for decades. Well, if it took decades for you to get here, it is going to take some time to heal.
To reverse that.
Yeah. But people really do start to feel better within, like I say, 4 to 8 weeks. Noticeable differences. I have half a dozen examples off the top of my head that I can think about. And clients typically work with me somewhere between 6 and 12 months. And for some people, even the 12 months is just really getting them set up. And then there's even more learning and healing after that.
Yeah.
But somewhere in that time frame is really what people need.
If we have been experiencing symptoms, like you said, for years, or, maybe just a few months, when do we know it's time to get a hold of you and maybe take that next step and having you assist us so we can feel better? Because that's the ultimate goal. Yeah,
that's another just really good question and thing to think about. It, timing is everything. I'll say that. And I think any one of us who's ever dealt with health problems of any kind, and I think that's everyone on some level, we all know timing is everything. This kind of approach, as we've been talking about, making changes to your diet as part of gut healing. And yes, there's a financial investment, but even more than that, it's a time investment.
Yeah.
And I mean, people really do need to be able to focus and put in the time and effort. I would honestly say at any point that people feel like, okay, right, I could benefit from some professional and expert advice. I want to get better. If anyone's kind of thinking through any of those things, that I think is the right time.
Is a sign.
Yeah.
Well, and just taking the test so you know exactly what's going on, because like you said, you had someone who not necessarily needed the probiotics, and it was maybe something else. So, and you're just guessing on what you're treating and not really knowing the facts.
Absolutely. Yep. And so many different examples, and if it's okay, I'll throw out a couple. Working with a 3-year-old with head to toe eczema.
I didn't even think about that. So it's going to show in your skin. Yeah.
Yeah. So skin, we've kind of been focusing on the digestive stuff. I need to come back because it's so much more than that, but it's skin, it's mental health, that gut-brain connection, autoimmunity. Those are like the 4 things I focus on the most and I see the most. But yeah, for example, a 3-year-old with head-to-toe eczema, by the way, it doesn't have head-to-toe eczema anymore, and it's only been about 4 to 6 weeks.
Oh, that is so fast. That's such like an amazing story to know they can be healed that quick.
Yes, and this 3-year-old, it's not that the parents weren't trying, right? I mean, they'd been to the pediatricians and they'd been to the allergists, and that same story, nothing was working. Steroids, topical
creams, all the things.
You name it, nothing was working. So yeah, I'm trying to remember, 4 to 6 weeks, somewhere in there, like it's almost cleared, 100%.
Wow.
So there's that. I've got a 76-year-old client who his main symptom is depression. And so that's where like the mental health piece can come in. Sometimes that's what people are feeling the most. And we did the stool test, and there's absolutely reasons why his gut is contributing to his depression. And then we've got all of the digestive stuff, right? The SIBO, the IBS, the Crohn's, the diverticulitis. Yeah.
And that goes
just
into,
so
I didn't think about
interesting.
like with depression too, because of that gut health, like, and
It's huge.
mind balance. There's so many. That's why we need to give you a call. That's why we need to reach out to you. What's the best place? Do we go online, schedule a consult, or how do we learn more from you, Emilie?
My website, Whole Essentials Nutrition, probably the best place to go. You'll see a little bit more information about my approach. There's a quiz that you can take if you're just kind of thinking about things that will kind of steer you into, either like, yeah, this is a problem, or it's a quiz about gut imbalances. And there's different patterns is the best way to describe it.
Okay.
So there's a free quiz if that's where you're at. There's a place for you to schedule a call with me if you're ready to talk to me, and that's a free 15-minute gut clarity call.
I love it.
So if that's where you're at and you're ready to talk to me about your unique story, if this is a good fit for you, then please reach out that way. Those are probably the best ways to connect with me.
Well, you're so fabulous. We've had you on the show so many times, and if you're thinking of calling Emilie and setting up a consult, like, please do it, because she is so kind. You know so much. I'm always like, you're just such a wealth of knowledge, gut health and nutrition and everything. So you've been so fantastic to have on the show and answer all our questions. And I just highly suggest someone reach out to you, because you get the science, you get the help, but you get like a friend. Like, you're just so kind.
Thank you.
I appreciate you sitting down with me and talking and helping people feel better.
That's what I want. Yeah. Thank you.
And you feel it too. Like, I know that's like, you just want to help people. So thank you, Emilie. It's been a pleasure chatting with you. And thank you for listening to another episode of Fresh Off the Set. Please rate, review, and subscribe. And we will see you next week. Congrats, you made it to the end. If you want to continue to freshen up your day, you can watch us on Fresh Living every weekday on CBS Channel 2 in Utah at 1 o'clock. You can also watch us on our YouTube channel, KUTV Fresh Living, and follow us on social media. We will see you next week.